There you
All
go.
right, now I see it. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. This is the Vermont State Senate Committee on Institutions. Today is April 9th, 2021. My name is Joe Benning. I am the chair of the committee. I'm from Caledonia County and will be your host for this afternoon's events. We have Senator Mazza from Grand Isle, Senator Ingalls from Essex Orleans, Senator McCormick from Windsor. We will shortly be joined by Senator Parent from Franklin County. And our first topic of discussion deals with Section 7 in the Capital Bill regarding the University of Vermont's construction, renovations, and major maintenance. We have with us President of the University, Suresh Gallaramella, Richard Cate, Vice President. I also see Wendy Koenig. I don't have you on my schedule, but you are welcome to say anything you want because I'm sure folks on the committee would love to be able to have a conversation with you. It sounds like they already have when I climbed on board. We will be proceeding from there to another conversation, but let me start out the University of Vermont's presentation by saying we are on YouTube. This is a new format for virtually all the senators, even though they've been on it for a year now. We are learning how to deal with the public at large. What we have no control over whatsoever is who's out there watching us. Could be people who are very experienced in the conversation surrounding the university, for instance. Could be people that have never been to the university and have never been in a Senate committee meeting before. And so we try to keep things at a 50,000-foot level to enable everybody to learn from scratch. We also have on the committee 3 new committee members who have not been recently involved in the conversations we've been having about your participation in the Capital Bill. One of whom has been on the committee before, but that was a long time ago in ancient history, right, Dick?
Yes.
The other thing is we have a brand new legislator, so we are literally learning everything from scratch and try to keep it as basic as we can. So as we start, and as each one of you decides to say something, if you so choose, we would very much like a basic biographical background to enable the public at large to know who you are and inform them as to how you fit into this conversation about the money that's given to you from the Capital Bill. With that, I know you're all very experienced at this process. So I don't need to ask if you have any questions. I'm sure you'll let me know if you do. But President Garamella, if you would like to start, I have you first on my list. Welcome to Institutions.
Thank you so much, Senator Benning. I truly appreciate the chance to speak to you briefly. The majority of our comments will be made by Richard Cate, who's spoken with you many times. And of course, as you noted, Wendy Koenig, my colleague, is here as well. So we're happy to answer any questions you have. I wanted to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank you all for your service to the state. The COVID times have not been kind to any of us, and it can't be fun to be on Zoom all the time, but we'll try to keep our half hour relatively informative and hopefully useful. So thank you for inviting me, and it's my first time with your committee, and I'm honored to be invited. So I guess I don't know the introduction. By the way, I really enjoyed the way you set up the committee meeting. It's the most organized, sort of very, very clear what you want to get done. So I'm president of the University of Vermont. I've been here for less than 2 years. And no, I'm not complaining about being president at a time of COVID. Our community, the UVM community and the state have been great partners. The state has been very helpful to us with the stimulus funds we've received to date, without which we couldn't have seen ourselves through this. I think you should be proud of your university. We have among the best performance. We've had an in-person, high quality experience for our students. And I think we serve as a model for this, for the country. So thank you for your support of the university over many years. My part, I just want to talk about a couple of things. First, I hope you all have access to this and ready access to it. There are 2 one-pagers we shared with the committee. One's our sort of fact sheet with a few, brief data points about UVM, and the other is a little bit about our Office of Engagement. And if you don't have it right in front of you, it's okay. I will lead you through a couple of things, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Richard Kate. So on highlights of UVM, I'll just say that I'd like to remind you, I guess as another point of pride, that 45% of Vermonters attend the university paying no tuition at all. So for 45% of Vermonters, their attendance at UVM is tuition free, and most of the rest of the Vermonters that attend have some form of financial aid. Over 30% of our out-of-state students and almost 70% of Vermonters, once they're done with our program, stay in the state and add to the workforce and the economy. And I think that's a great benefit. We have a 1.3+ billion impact on the state's economy, according to a study that was done some time back. We're very good stewards of the state appropriation we get from all of you. It's very simple what we do with it. A half of the state appropriation goes to Vermont student aid. A quarter goes to the Larner College of Medicine, obviously producing great support systems for healthcare in the state, and a quarter goes to extension. And so of the state appropriation that's remained unchanged, as you know, for a dozen years or more, 75% of it goes to provide financial support for Vermonters attending UVM, and 25% goes to extension services. I am most passionate, if you gave me 3 words to say what I'm about, I'm most passionate about affordability and access for our students. I would like as many students to consider UVM and not have barriers in attending UVM as we can possibly get away with. We have therefore frozen our tuition for a 3rd year, something we'd never done before. So for 3 years in a row, we've frozen tuition, and I will do my best to continue that. We have frozen our room and board for next year, no increase, and we've even cut our comprehensive fees by a little bit. So we're very serious about making UVM as affordable as possible, even though we rely very heavily on out-of-state tuition and tuition dollars, and our appropriation from the state is quite small, but we're very serious about affordability. I'm happy to answer questions on that. I will, however, take a minute or two to simply also say that another very strong commitment of mine, which is really these two are 2 of 3 parts in our strategic plan, which is a 2-page document we published last year, is our commitment as a land-grant institution to the state. So one manifestation of that is that we have set up an Office of Engagement, and in its very short life of just a few months, we have done a lot. It has had a lot of impact. We're tracking the impact. We've set ourselves metrics. We're measuring ourselves against those quantitative metrics. We've got a newsletter going out monthly. It goes to many, many stakeholders, but certainly all legislators. If any of you have not been seeing it, please let us know, and Wendy will get you directly get you a copy. And the Office of Engagement is doing really quite well. I'm not going to go through each of the items in there, but I would invite you to think of the Office of Engagement as the front door to UVM. I had heard in my travels before COVID, when I could get to every corner of the state, I did that with Wendy in my first few months. I'd heard about some thinking that UVM is inaccessible, city on a hill, all those kinds of things. Those are cute names, but I'd much rather not be anything on a hill, and much more that each of you thinks of us as your university, your resource. And so in keeping with the land grant mission, in the land of just and moral, we are serving all 14 counties in the state through our Office of Engagement. And suffice to say that I think of the work of the Office of Engagement to be in 3 buckets. One is in talent and workforce, sort of pipeline development. The other is in business assistance, which includes applied research, commercialization, all that, and then economic development. There are many pieces to this, including an announcement we made just a couple of days ago that we had a 41% increase in our research and other sponsored expenditures that are now up to $191 million. So this, for example, brings a lot of federal dollars and private sector dollars into the state and add to the vibrancy of the state. So I think the Office of Engagement will stand as an extremely important asset for the state. I hope you view it as your office and ask of us anything you would like it to do. The legislature gave us a couple of $1 million early on to set it up, and we have made a request, a modest request, I think, of $1 million of operational funds per year, and that we would have all the programs be self-supporting in time. I'll end with, again, a reminder that our COVID performance has been excellent. We are responsible at UVM for a third of all tests in the state. A third of all the tests across Vermont have been done at UVM. And our positivity rate, even in these difficult times, is 0.5% compared to the 2+ in the state. So again, I'm proud of our colleagues and our students. We're doing some prudent things. Our expenses, as you know, increase every year. Our revenue, if we keep our tuition frozen, will not, at least not from student tuition. So we need to do some prudent things to live within our means and to establish our financial viability into the future. So we're taking some careful actions in collaboration with many voices on campus and looking ahead. And with that, I don't know if you'd like to ask me any questions at this point or turn it over to Richard, but I'm happy to pause for a minute or two, Senator Benning, and see if there are questions for me before we get to our ask for the capital part.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. And just to begin, I'll say I have to congratulate you. You're the first person that I've heard use the words Zoom and fun in one sentence. And doing so at 2:13 on a Friday afternoon with the sun shining, you get kudos from me for being able to get that through the committee without anybody gasping.
Making lemonade out of lemons.
You have mentioned Justin Morrill. We happen to have a committee member who, if I'm not mistaken, has the Justin Morrill land homestead in his district. And as historian for the committee, could probably tell us everything about Justin Morrill and his land grants efforts. Sorry, I'm not speaking well this afternoon. So Dick, you want to chime in with Justin Morrill and why the university's benefited from him?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't actually prepared my notes, but actually the Justin Morrill homestead is just over the line in Orange County, but I'll be happy to hold forth anyway. There was recently a conference at the Morrill a couple of years ago now on the land grant colleges, and the interesting point was affiliated, several speakers affiliated them with the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment and the connection there, which was a general movement in this country. In many ways, the country we live in, the forerunner was established in 1776, but it was really the Civil War and the earlier Reconstruction period that made the country we would recognize today. And a lot of it is just the broadening of who gets to really fully enjoy being an American. The abolition of slavery, abolished in Vermont in 1777, but not in the nation until 1865. And the affiliation, Justin Morrill was a close associate of Lincoln's, and that these were very much of the same, cut out of the same cloth. The idea that the poor country boy like Justin Morrill should be able to get a college education as well as the rich man's son, because education had previously been a prerogative of the aristocracy. How much more do you want?
That's pretty good. I'll just add one little note for current events purposes. We recently had an invasion of the US Capitol, and there's an infamous picture of a person inside the Capitol with a Confederate flag, and he's standing directly in front of the portrait of Justin Morrill.
Saw that.
Well, let me add also, we are working on making the Vermont State House more representative of our full historical story and of all the people of Vermont. more women, more people of color, as we should. But I've also added to that complaint that we don't even have the right white guys, because Justin Morrill is not honored in the Vermont State House and certainly should be, along with Thaddeus Stevens.
Senator Benning,
went
who
off
said
on
a
a-
Zoom,
we
who said a
went
Zoom
off
call
on a-
couldn't be informational, I guess, and fun. I have Justin Morrill's desk in my office. Please
Oh,
come by
kidding.
anytime and you can see it but not touch it.
Well, I'll want to visit there someday.
Thank you.
If you see some initials scratched into them, they won't be mine. They'd probably be Senator Mazza.
Yeah, right.
So, continuing on with the conversation, committee, any committee members have any questions or comments for the president? Russ, you're muted.
I said, didn't Senator Mazza and Morrill go to school together?
I think they did.
Oh. He'll pay for
Russ, Russ is our newest legislator. He's fitting right in with this committee.
that. He just lost 20 miles of paving up there.
I
Yeah,
profusely,
Russ hasn't learned. He's not getting any new roads.
I profusely apologize.
You're right.
He says as he's laughing.
Yeah, right.
Well, Suresh, thank you very much for coming this afternoon. It's been fun.
Thank you. I'd
Are
like
you
to turn
turning it
to
over?
Richard Tate.
Are you
Yeah.
turning it over to Richard Cate at this point?
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
I'm Richard Cate. I'm Vice President for Finance and Administration at UVM. I grew up in the farming country just up the road from Montpelier on Route 14 in East Calais. I'm a seventh generation Vermonter that went to UVM in 1967 and benefited from a Wilbur Scholarship. And so I've been in this role for the last 13 years. I have spent most of my career working in Vermont in government and nonprofit organizations, and I have crossed paths with all of you in one frame of my life or another. So good to see you all. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So as soon as we get there, I think you've got to enable the editing before you can. Just so we're talking about capital appropriations, and we're very grateful for what we get from the state. These are just a few of the buildings that we maintain at UVM. These buildings range in age from 1885 to 1936, and I'm sure many of you have seen these buildings. These are just a sample. We do have some modern buildings as well, but buildings that are as ornate and as historical as these obviously do require a lot of maintenance. They have stood the test of time, but we have to spend quite a bit of money to make it all work. Maybe go to the next slide, please. So this is how we fund our capital projects at UVM. And as you can see, the biggest piece of this is debt. As you know, the state does not have the resources to fund the construction of buildings at UVM. Our appropriation for capital has ranged from 2 million to about 1.3 right now. And so when it comes to time to build a big new building or just to do a major renovation, we have to go to other sources. So UVM has a fairly significant debt portfolio that we have, but we do a pretty good job of making sure that we always are keeping our debt burden ratio below 5% so that we are well able to pay the bill. We get a piece of this from private gifts. More than a quarter of it, the funding comes from our normal operating budget. And then, as you can see, we use a small piece of building reserves that we've acquired over the years, and then a state capital appropriation. So if you think about this in two pieces, there is the primary piece in terms of capitalized projects, and then there is some deferred maintenance, that may not get capitalized. And so what we traditionally do is use most of the appropriation that you give us for these smaller deferred maintenance projects that are ongoing all over the campus. And so some may range from replacing all the steps or the windows to a new roof. There are always many sources. We have about $380 million worth of deferred maintenance. It's a big number. I would say that no organization has zero in that regard. Our folks do a great job. If you walk through our buildings and look at the outside and the inside, you'll see that they're in good shape, but there is always something that needs to be done. So we ensure that we don't have critical infrastructure problems. Health and safety projects always come first. Then we go to ensuring that the outside envelope of the building, the windows, the roof, the things that keep the water out are all secure because we never want to let that overcome the interior of the building. So maybe the next slide, please. So just a few key points, and I've hit some of them. We got about 5.4 million square feet of space, 280 buildings on the campus. 64% of our buildings were built before 1975. And then again, we have these historical buildings that were built much more than a century ago. We are always in the business of maintenance. I talk virtually every day with my facilities executive director and others in regard to what's next or what do we need money for. And we are often having to move money from one project to another and make it all work. As I said, our appropriations have ranged from 2 to 1.3. We had requested 2 million for this year. The governor's recommend was 1, and the House has recommended to do, I think, 1.5. So we obviously can use everything you have to spare. I guarantee you we will make a very good use of all of it. So I think with that, I'm open to whatever questions you may have.
Denise, if you could take that screen down and let me see who the committee is that may be raising a hand somewhere. We can also speed it up some. If you guys have any questions, feel free to holler in. I see Senator Parent has joined us. Any questions?
No,
Senator Mazza.
I didn't realize you had that many buildings. I know it's an endless list of maintenance over the years. You've always spent what we give, and that's a small portion, but for what you have to do for all the buildings, and when you add on to a building, of course, a lot of that's done through donations, but still you have to maintain it after. And it's I didn't realize you had that much square footage. That's a lot of space. Wow.
Yes, Senator, it is. And of course, we really do try to make efficient use of it, and we do try to downsize when we can. Part of the challenge we encounter, of course, is that many of these buildings are historic and having to deal with that effort. We have a few old Victorian houses around the perimeter of the campus, and one of the goals we have is eventually to perhaps find ways to move out of them and then ground lease them to a private developer that might be able to use historic tax credits to fix them up, but we would retain control of the land around them.
I think a lot of folks underestimate the value of our state colleges and the UVM, how much economic money that comes in the state from the colleges. I know when the college leaves Burlington gets pretty quiet.
Yes, sir. Does indeed.
And when they're back, it's just like all the other state colleges. When they leave town, it gets pretty quiet.
Is this the point where we can argue that our friend Senator Baruth's contract needs to be redone.
Well, he doesn't, he's not there working, is he?
Well, Professor Baruth is a friend of mine, so I try to get digs in where I can. But if you can renegotiate his contract downward,
Yeah,
it'd be a great time to do that.
we'll give you the money that you don't give him. We'll give it to you. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Wendy Koenig, you are here, and I'm assuming you are either here for moral support or to pick up the pieces should anybody fall along the way. I haven't heard anybody necessarily, but you are
Just-
welcome to contribute if you'd like.
Just here to help answer questions if there were any. So appreciate you all having us in today. Thanks.
Wendy,
Well, we very much appreciate you.
how many years, Wendy?
How many years have I been at UVM?
Yeah.
13.
That's what I thought. We go back quite a ways. Yeah, yeah. She does a
That's
good
right.
job for UVM. That's no doubt about
Thank
that.
you, Senator.
We appreciate you all coming in today and sharing your afternoon with us. I hope you are all able to get out in the sunshine while we're still in committee for another hour.
Thank you, Senator Benning. So I think just to close, we would really appreciate your help in taking our capital budget from the $1 million to $2 million level per year. As you can see, that we have plenty of deferred maintenance to justify it. So any support you can provide is welcome. And please, at any time, if any of the senators on this committee have any questions for us, please reach out to Wendy or to me, and we'll be happy to answer. We'll also come around and see you in your home counties as the opportunity allows.
Great.
Thank you for a good job you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Have a good
See you,
afternoon.
Dick Kate.
Take care. Yes,
See you,
sir.
Dick. See you,
You good?
Dick. Good
Bye.
to see you.
You too.
Jack Anderson, you are here to tell us about the HVAC system needs in the county courtrooms, I'm assuming, since you're representing the county judges. So I think you were on earlier when I first introduced things this afternoon and asked for everybody to give us a 50,000-foot view of not only who you are, but how you fit into the picture for an audience that we just have no idea who's out there listening, but we will expect that there will be at least some out there who have never heard this conversation before, haven't any idea what an HVAC system is, let alone what an assistant judge is. At the end, I'll give you a personal test on what is an assistant judge, because I've got one story. I don't know if you have a different one.
The reason they want clean air is Senator Benning appears in all these courthouses and he wants to have fresh air in there. So we're trying to help him out.
The
Well,
humor
that's a lot of
goes downhill as the afternoon gets longer.
It helps him. It helps him with his wind.
Yeah. I was going to go there, but I didn't go there. Okay.
Well, you served it up, so I just had to knock it out of the park.
Sorry about that, Judge, but you're up.
It's all right. I like this banter. It's great. Great. Well, an assistant judge, there are 2 in each county. So there are 28 altogether. And the position has been around since the beginning of the state government in the late 1700s. We basically have 3 functions. We have a judicial function where we are allowed to sit with the presiding judge, one to either side of the judge. So we are called side judges. And we hear family and civil matters. We don't hear environmental matters or I'm missing one, but it doesn't come to mind right now. But I'm in my 10th year, and I want to thank the committee for having me and listening to what I have to say. My name is Jack Anderson. I am the assistant judge in Windsor. I'm in my 11th year, and currently I'm the president of the Vermont Association of County Judges. And as I said, we have a judicial function, but we are also responsible for the county functions, including providing a suitable courthouse for the Vermont judiciary to use, and that is in Title 24. The county must provide a suitable courthouse for the use of the judiciary, and we pay all the bills for the courthouse, the heat, the lights, the maintenance, the electricity, and so on and so on. So I'm here today to try to perhaps get some ARPA funding from the latest round of funding to assist the assistant judges to take care of their courthouses in these times of COVID. I wanted to mention before I moved on, though, that I am also a graduate of a land-grant college, University of Maine, 1970. So here's the background on this. Sometime last year, before the second wave of COVID hit in the fall, the Supreme Court asked the assistant judges in each of the counties to evaluate the HVAC systems in their county courthouses. Now that's heat, ventilation, and air conditioning, air exchange. So we did that. We took an inventory, we did assessments. Some of us hired engineers, some of us hired the HVAC companies that we had already been using. And here's what we found out. Orleans, Essex, Bennington, Wyndham, Grand Isle, and Franklin have none. No HVAC at all, which is air exchange, bringing in fresh air and moving the stale air out. Addison, Lamoille, and Caledonia. Addison does not have a county courthouse. It is a state courthouse, the Frank Mahady Courthouse in Middlebury. And Lamoille and Caledonia, I don't know the exact breakdown, but I know they're so-called hybrids, partially state-owned, partially county-owned. I'm really not sure who'd be responsible for maintenance, but I'm assuming it would be BGS. And some, including Rutland, Orange, Woodstock, Chittenden, and Washington, have some semblance of HVAC, but need improvements to those systems in order to meet code. Okay, so to get us through the COVID winter, the judiciary has been a great help for us. They had used some CARES funding, and we installed HEPA filters. I think they're called CAP 600s. They're very powerful. They're on wheels. They're as big as a small refrigerator. They filter the air, and they also have a ultraviolet virus killing device in the air. So the air is, and we put these in areas where the staff works. And this is judiciary staff, okay? And we're grateful that the judiciary could do that. But now the counties are looking at significant expense to make the courthouses right and make them safe for the employees, and also so we can open back up. Now, judiciary has engaged mechanical engineer. His name is Dan Dupras. He's out of Rutland, and he has helped the county judges. He's been around and has helped to assess, and we have some rough numbers of what it would cost, but they're very, very, very rough. And anyhow, we are entering what we call the fresh air season. I'm sure the windows in our courthouse are open today, but we're looking at work to be done in the next 6 months before the next cold weather comes around and we have to shut the windows. Now, just some more explanation. The courthouses are historic buildings and have been in use for a long time. Grand Isle for over 200 years, for example. And the county courthouses are, well, basically where the county residents go to access justice. The judiciary also use the county courts, and we need to open these things up as we start to resume jury trials. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we haven't had a jury trial in a long time, well over a year. And some of the courthouses, including mine in Woodstock, has been approved for jury trials. But we're trying to expand that. Now, quite simply, the counties can't afford to pay for these new HVAC systems. In 2013, Windsor County took out a bond of $2 million, and we did a renovation of the Windsor County Courthouse. And we did so because Windsor has the second highest grant list in the state after Chittenden County. So the effect on the tax rate was reasonable, and the voters approved it. But in many, many counties, that's not going to be possible. Okay? So with this infusion of ARPA money, we're hoping that we can get some of it dedicated to this so-called HVAC project. Now, I know it's confusing. I've talked to some folks in the legislature to sort out the funding. What can it be used for? Who gets to appropriate it? What are the accounting requirements? What are the reporting requirements? It's still a moving target. But if there's an appropriation, and I've heard one came over from House Institutions, if there's an appropriation of ARPA funds through the House and Senate Institutions Committees to the judiciary, The Vermont Association of County Judges requests that appropriate amounts be earmarked for the county courthouse strictly for HVAC projects. Now, I've been working with Greg Mousley. Maybe some of you know him. He works for Judiciary. He's been helping to plan this and get the get the HEPA filters into the county courthouses and doing assessments. And for example, to finish it off and make it code compliant in the Windsor County Courthouse, it's going to be about $140,000. In others, it's going to be hundreds of thousands. Okay. Let me see. I lost track. Sorry. So anyway, I spoke to Greg yesterday about my appearing before the committee. And I said, I would like to have an appropriate amount earmarked from these ARPA funds. And he told me he's not opposed to it at all, but I don't know if Mr. Mousley has the last say in the matter. But I just want to emphasize that Judiciary and the counties have been working together. We have a common goal to open up a safe courthouse, to open up more of these courthouses that are restricted now because of the HVAC limitations. And anyhow, I'm not sure of the amount. I think I would rely on Judiciary to provide that because they've furnished us with a little spreadsheet, some estimates. But I think they would be the one to determine the amount of money that they would need. And I told Mr. Mousley that this would be strictly for HVAC with accountability and not to be used on anything like other renovations to the building, but just for good air in these times of COVID. So I'd be glad to take any questions.
Senator Mazza.
Does that include heat or just could they put it in one package, heat, air conditioning, and the whole thing, or?
Well, the courthouses that don't have any HVAC just have heat and open window. The ventilation in the winter, it's all closed. There's none.
Okay.
So the heat and no cool except maybe window air conditioning units in some of these older buildings, like Wyndham comes to mind down in Newfane.
It's more the air circulation, yeah.
Air circulation. And in times of COVID, we know that air circulation is very, very important to keep the virus at bay. And actually, it was Chief Justice Reiber that brought this up to us and said, we all need to work together to make the courthouses safe. And there are county employees in these buildings, but the majority of the employees are employed by the Judiciary. As you know, the restructuring happened back in 2009, 2010. There is no longer a Windsor County Court. We are Vermont Superior Court Civil Division, Woodstock. And that's the same it is in all the counties. But nevertheless, we are expected to maintain the courthouse, keep them safe at our expense. And I'll just throw in that we get no compensation from the Judiciary at all. All the expenses of the courthouse are paid for by the county.
Oh, did you find out the money comes through Institutions Committee or language, or when did the House react?
Yeah.
I had just heard, and I talked to my former colleague, Representative Emmons, about what her committee had done and sent over to you folks. And I don't know if I got my facts right, but it was the current assumption, it was like $51 million to be split between the legislature and the Judiciary. I don't know if I'm working on that or not.
Dick McCormick, I keep hearing your voice. Are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Asking a question?
No, I'm thinking out loud. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My wife catches me talking to myself sometimes. I'm sorry.
It's not a bad habit.
As long as it's
Where else
your
would
wife.
I find
You
what
like-
Mark Twain said? Mark Twain said, I talk to myself, where else would I find such an interesting speaker and such an attentive listener?
Well, I heard it that I talk to myself because I enjoy intelligent conversation.
Yes. Okay, I'm busted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I see Catherine Benham has joined us. I was wondering if she was just on the screen and in reality out on her deck somewhere in the sunshine. Usually we have someone from BGS here that could probably also answer the question. But now that the question has been raised, Catherine from JFO, can you tell us anything about the game plan or how it's fitting into this capital bill process?
Absolutely. I'm Catherine Benham from the Joint Fiscal Office. Nice to see you again, Jack. There was $113 million of federal capital funds that is coming to the state. And what the House committee did was it basically allocated it, reserved it, and did not appropriate it. So it wasn't being spent yet, but it's basically saying this is what we're putting aside for these kinds of buildings. So of the 113, they put, and this is in section, it's on page 28 of the bill, it's section 26, where it speaks to this. So they put 62 million for the Agency of Human Services for mental health and correctional infrastructure. And then they put 51 allocated for infrastructure for the legislative and judicial branches. And then it calls for recommendations. It says for the designated use of the 51 million, JLMC shall submit recommendations on the use of federal funds from the legislative branch, and the court administrator shall submit recommendations on the use of the federal funds for the judicial branch. So it was, and the reports are due January 15th next year.
Am I safe in assuming that we will then deal with the issue of specifics come capital budget adjustment time?
That was their intent on that. You can obviously do whatever you would choose, but the idea was to get recommendations on those and then move forward next year.
So Jack, you've come 2/3 of the way. You've got Senate and House institutions committees covered. It sounds like you have a battle with the judiciary yet to make sure you're higher on the list than they might normally put the assistant judge's request.
Well, I can tell you, Greg Mousley works in the court administrator's office. He's their financial guy, and he's been given this project. And he's been very, very helpful, and he shares the same goals as I. So I certainly hope they give their stamp of approval on this. And I know, I'll tell you again, that Greg Mousley has working with another man named, he's got a great name, Zoltan Holcraft. And he has been doing the numbers work and visiting the state, the county courthouses, doing some evaluations, and over the winter getting these HEPA filters in there. So we got through the winter safely. I don't think that we had a COVID case in any of the county courthouses over the winter, but I'd like to continue.
Well, you had something go on in your hybrid in St. Johnsbury.
That's right. Yeah.
But I was long ago advocating that the judiciary should take the lead in trying to get court personnel higher on the list of priorities for vaccines. And it just never went anywhere for some reason. But we're all going to have a lot of fun when the doors suddenly get opened and we all have to face what's been hanging out there.
You can help our chair smile if you get him back into court so he can handle his cases again. You know, he's missed the courthouses, so we got to get him back in the courthouses.
Yeah, and that courthouse has 7 different courtrooms, if I remember.
Yeah, I told this story, I think, to the judiciary yesterday, but for the first time, I was meeting with a clerk out of the St. Johnsbury State's Attorney's Office, and both of us were comparing notes. And for the first time in our careers, in my case, which is now 37 years, I'm buying brand new file jackets because I've run out of all the file jackets that I still use since the first day I bought them. But we are both in the same boat, and we're getting pushback from the people that we submit the bills to because they can't understand why they have to pay for file jackets. That's another story, but we're anticipating a really big avalanche coming down the pike in the not too distant future.
You know, it's been a trying time. You know, not only did we go to the new Odyssey case management system, my county was one of the first 3 to do it. I think it's statewide now, and implementing that, and then have COVID, and then we had to go to remote hearing while we're trying to deal with the new file system. It was challenging for sure.
Yeah, my county actually was the last to have it instituted, and I've just recently, like within the last 3 weeks, learned how to e-file.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck would have it, I represent one gentleman who has 26 separate criminal dockets now pending. Wow. And we've arrived at an 18-page plea agreement. And the 18-page plea agreement has to be filed separately in each one of those cases. So walking through all the steps to get that document filed at the courthouse, it's going to take a couple of hours to get that process done. Where we usually would just walk up to the clerk and hand her a document, she'd photocopy it and distribute.
Yeah, indeed.
Crazy.
My poor
I've had-
courthouse in Grand Isle still good typewriters, we haven't got up there yet,
You still got the Pony Express running up there too, I understand.
Well, you've got the oldest continually used county courthouse in the state.
Is it really? I didn't know. I heard you say 200 years or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was back to the 1820s.
Wow.
Before the middle of the century, way before the Civil War. built
No,
out of-
I wasn't there, Senator Ingalls. I know you before you bring it up, okay?
Dick, can you find out if anybody's done any metal detecting around the front?
Help for you.
You weren't there, but you're the next county over, I heard.
Yeah.
Joe, if you come by, I'll give you a drink. Stop by.
Okay. I have to confess, after all the time I've been a lawyer, that's the only courthouse in the state I haven't been inside.
Where Grand Isle?
Yeah, so one of these days.
Wow.
I'll come
Beautiful,
over.
beautiful little courthouse, and boy, they're looking forward to some air circulation. But no, that's a beautiful courthouse. But yeah, it's. I'm trying to think of the judge. He just passed away a while ago. He lives in St. Albans. He used to take his boat across the lake and go to be at the courthouse and go back home, back to St. Albans.
Was it George Costas?
Yes, George Costas. There you go. That's
Yeah.
Yes, I remember him.
Well, over in Guildhall, we have an easy air circulation process. We got windows on both sides of the building, so we
Yep,
open the windows.
that's the way it is in a lot of them. That's the way it was in mine until we spent the money to fix it.
Right.
Senator Mazars, I want you to say good to see you again. I know we overlapped in our time up there,
yeah, that's
as
right.
well as Senator McCormick. And Senator Parent, I believe, was a state rep from somewhere in Franklin County when I was up there. Is that right?
That might have been Alan. I just came in about 7 years
okay.
ago.
Okay, I remember.
Alan-
the name.
Alan Parent was a state rep in the early 2000s.
Yep, that's the one I'm
Yeah.
thinking of.
Parent had not been born yet when you were.
I was in sixth grade when he was state rep.
Jack, when were you over there?
I was elected in 98, 2000, and 2002. So I was there for the civil union debate.
Oh boy, that was fun,
Oh,
wasn't it?
boy. Yeah.
Oh my God, never experienced anything like that. Never.
No,
Never will
neither.
again. No.
I keep saying I'm going to write a book about it,
Oh, I'll
but
tell you, you could. Yeah.
it was an interesting experience, to say the least.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Yeah.
Alan Gilbert, I don't know if you remember him, but he
I
was
do,
working
yep.
with the ACLU. He just wrote a book about that experience.
Really?
Really?
you
No
know, which
kidding.
is,
Wow.
Pretty interesting.
I have to read it.
Yeah, it was
Any
really, really something.
other comments, questions from anybody?
Catherine, thank you for that information. You helped me straighten that out. Now I know what's going on.
She bails us out all the time. So
Yes, she does.
But anyway, that's my request, my plea. If we could get into the queue, and I think talking to judiciary, especially to Mr. Mosley, would be a good thing, so we could come up with a reasonable number to get that work done.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's my story on assistant judges.
Okay.
Long time ago, before you were in the legislature, there was my mentor, a guy named Graham Newell.
oh boy.
Graham Newell was my history professor, and he gave me this explanation of side judges. When Vermont was first formed, virtually everybody who lived in the state that had anything to do with the legal system was from New York.
Right.
Of course, New Yorkers just weren't trusted at all. So the local citizenry decided they were going to form a government, and then when they did, they decided they were going to have these New York judges. That'd be okay, but they were going to flank that judge by two locals, and those two locals could veto whatever was going on. And of course, you know now you can't veto on the law, but you can on the facts, which remains an interesting
Right.
situation.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the explanation that I've just given you, I give to every one of my clients who's never been in a courtroom before, because they always ask, why are there three chairs up behind that bench?
That's a great
Yeah.
explanation too.
I have no idea whether that's actually true, but that's what he
It is.
said it was. And I
It is true. A huge distrust. And two local gentlemen were elected to make sure everything went right. And I remember the last time assistant judges vetoed the sitting judge. It was a criminal case moved from Chittenden down to Windsor, a heinous crime back in the early 80s, where one man took two adolescent girls and one died and one was shot with a BB gun. It was just a heinous thing. And the two assistant judge, well, the sitting judge had made a deal with the prosecution that he was going to sentence him to X number of years. And the assistant judges didn't think that was enough after what he had done. And they said no. And that was the last time that we sat in criminal court, I believe.
Was that the Louis Hamlin and
Yes, Louis
Jamie
Hamlin.
Savage case?
That's
Oh,
We got a book that I've been selling. Gary Taylor wrote a book about it.
okay.
Very, yeah. And
I got to look that one up.
yeah, very excellent. Oh my God, it's called the pink dress or something, red dress.
Yeah, Red Dress. That was a good
Red
book.
Dress. And I read it, and I sold his book for him, and it's a wonderful story. He can't use real names, but everything is true in the book, and it's about that case. And when you said that, I said, I bet you that's that one in Essex, because at the time he was at the Essex Police Department. You know.
Yeah.
that precipitated a special legislative
Yes,
session as
yes,
well.
yes.
Really?
Well,
What
because
happened?
one of the perpetrators was underage.
Yes.
Right.
Was in line to just spend a couple of years in reform.
Yeah. One got out, he was 15 and a half. He got out at 18 or something, and the other one is
Yeah.
put away. But yeah, one of them I think it says located up Northeast Kingdom somewhere. Today.
I'll double check myself and get back to you tomorrow, but my understanding is also that the side judges come from the colonial times where the judges were appointed by the British.
Yes.
And this was an idea to have a local. So what in Vermont, antipathy to New York also translated to antipathy to the British.
Right.
Right.
They were
That's
they
right.
overlap.
Interesting.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Well,
We're a pure vestige of the colonial era, I guess.
Yeah.
we will give you our best, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, thanks for
Talk to
coming.
us all.
Committee, I have 8 minutes to go before our next witness is due, and they're not here on the screen yet. So if we could take a 5-minute break and come back, we'll hopefully have nothing more than a half an hour left to our conversation this afternoon.
Can we have tomorrow off? Is that possible?
You can have the next 2 days off as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
How about 3?
3.
I'm going for 3.
I got to
Thanks,
work
Reed.
on Mondays.
Well, Dick said he's going to give us some information tomorrow. He just said, I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So I
Everyone
think
be here.
I just want to know if we have to work tomorrow. No, okay.
Okay. I'm going to cut my video and my mute screen, Denise, so that I'll come back in 5 minutes. And
Are we offline?
I'm not sure. Are we offline, Denise? We're still online right now. That much I know. I'm not sure she can go off and come back on again in 5 minutes, but.
No problem. I just going to chat with